Alexa, turn off.
Hello and welcome everyone. The Pacific Alumni Association would like to welcome you to Lunch and Listen, 5 Questions with a Ukrainian with the Conservatory of Music professor. Let me introduce our host who will be here today. Greg Agazarian is a class of 1993 graduate of the University of the Pacific McGeorge School of Law. He has enjoyed a distinguished career in public policy, both at the state and federal level. Currently, Greg serves as a board of director on the Pacific Alumni Association and is a parent of a Pacific first-year student. Greg will be leading our conversation with our professor from the Conservatory of Music.
Thank you, Chris, and it's a real pleasure to be here today. And thank everybody participating for being part of our ongoing series here, Lunch and Listen. A great way for Pacific alumni and folks interested in learning and listening and in spending some time together over lunch. So with us today, we're honored to be able to have a discussion with Professor Igor Veligan. Igor was born in the Ukraine in 1970, in the western part of Ukraine. He received his education from the Odessa State Conservatory of Music. He emigrated to the United States in 1996 and joined the University of Pacific Conservatory of Music and is currently a professor of violin and viola. Welcome, Professor. I want to thank you for offering this time to give us a little background. Obviously, Ukraine is tragic circumstances in the news and the headlines. And we thought bringing you together with us to discuss the circumstances and what's going on would help shed light from a personal point of view as to what's going on. So why don't we begin from the beginning? What brought you first to the United States? What was your journey here?
Yes, hello. It's great to be here, and thank you for inviting me for this. As everybody knows what's happening in Ukraine right now. Yeah, I moved to United States shortly after Ukraine, after Soviet Union was collapsed. We had relatives that moved to United States before us. My wife's grandma, she moved here earlier in I believe in 85 or so. And so they started immigration process for us. So at that time in Ukraine, many people were trying to get away from Ukraine, move to other countries, mainly for the economical reasons. So we moved as immigrants with my wife's parents. So that's why I'm here.
Great. It's my understanding that Northern California, the greater Sacramento area, is one of the largest concentrations of population of Ukrainian immigrants. Is there a thriving, cultural community that's developed? Are there groups that get together, and is it an involved community?
Yes, it did. Supposedly Ukrainian community in Sacramento is about 100,000, if I'm not mistaken. It's quite big. And there are many Ukrainian churches, and we are often part of this. There are Ukrainian Greek Orthodox churches, there are Ukrainian Baptist churches, Pentecostals, there are many. And there is also Ukrainian club Heritage that is in the Sacramento. It's actually headquarters of Northern California Heritage Club. And we are part of that and part of that community. And it's quite active. We celebrate all Ukrainian holidays. We make Ukrainian programs, we play Ukrainian concerts. And it does a lot for Ukraine in nowadays too, of course.
Well, I'm sure now the community here is very worried about and concerned about what's going on. Can you just give us and our listeners, I know we hear a lot about it on the news, but from your point of view, what is going on? What is it like on the ground there for the locals, the civilians? Can you just kind of take us to what this incursion, this invasion has done to the day-to-day life of your country folk?
Yeah, in news, you often hear words like conflict. As far as Ukrainian citizens are concerned, it's not a conflict, it's a real war. It's a it's just a war. And like many people agree that some of aspects of this war is a worse aspects than they experienced during Second World War. It just, everybody is horrified in Ukraine. It's like, it's not the same anymore. It was before war and now during the war. So people are, it's completely changed their life. We are in very close contact with the friends and family and pastors in Ukraine. And it's just different reality anymore. People live in Kharkov, in Mariupol, as you probably know. I'm not going to repeat so much of what you hear on the news, but Mariupol was particularly devastating. There are like about 400 people that Putin's regime won't let just civilians. They just won't let them escape from the place, and they are underground, being under bombardment constantly, without food or water or heat. It's just, there are people who just simply right now dying from dehydration and starvation there. We don't even know how bad it is, because it's cannot be evaluated at this point. So it's quite horrific what's going on in cities where it's not bombed yet. It's constantly, they have sirens. They have to go underground because the sirens are put on when there is a real threat, because there are like Russian military planes flying over, and they can be bombarded anytime. So people are really in stress right now.
We see and hear a lot of people fleeing and escaping the cities. I mean, and it's just horrifying, some of the visuals we get. The refugee crisis may be getting large. We understand it's going across the Polish border. But what of those that are staying? And we also hear that folks are staying and putting up a valiant fight. Can you just just generally explain, how that's all transpiring. If people can get out, are they getting out? Are the ones that are staying and fighting? How is it, just in general, how is that transpiring?
Yeah, well, overall, there is a martial law right now in Ukraine. So people who is between age, I believe, from 18 to 55 or something to 60, I'm not quite sure, they are not allowed to leave the country. But women and children and older people can. And a lot of them, they do leave the country, but not actually less than I would expect, because even like people that I know some, as a musician, I know like one composer that is quite famous. He's staying in Kiev right now, and he's 84-year-old. And when he was asked to evacuate, he said, why would I go? And I am so old, like, what's the point of me going? I was born here, I lived here, why would I leave my country? So they just leave, and some people just physically are not capable of leaving their apartment. Even when the sirens go on, they just cannot go to the basement, because most of the elevators, they don't work anymore, so they have to walk, and they just cannot walk. If it's a 16-story building apartment, they cannot go down there and go up all the time. So, and from what I know, many people, they just won't leave, because like women are allowed to leave, but a lot of them that I know personally, like staying with their husbands. Okay, you have to defend country, I'll do what I can. And many women actually take arms and protect in their cities as well, go to territorial defense and get in some training. And it's amazing what's going on there.
Well, you mentioned the territorial defense. Are there also efforts being made for not just fighting, but also for relief efforts, for getting supplies and water and food to those? Is that going on? Is the international community? I know that we hear a lot about the arms and whatnot going in, but is the international community coming through with a lot of day-to-day relief items?
Yes, indeed. That's one of the tasks of this territorial defense. They're not only dedicated to protect with arms forces, but they also help with refugees. They help in. I have my close friend pastor in Western Ukraine. They keep sending me all the time videos where they just stand near the main routes that like lead to Lviv. And I'm originally from Ternopil, which is like about 100 miles from Lviv. And there is a main route that goes to Poland. So cars are like constantly, like constant traffic, non-stop going. As I just stand by the road with food, and cars just can stop and pick up some snacks or some food and some water, and just, yeah, main necessities.
Well, that's the tragedy there. But what is the mood? What is the mood on the ground? Is it hopeful? Is it despair? Is it what, if you could describe the mood of the citizenry of the Ukrainian people, how would you describe that?
Well, at first, when I talked, people were, first of all, nobody really believed, including me, that would actually happen. And that's really true, because, Ukraine and Russia always had some issues, and it's just based on the fact that Ukraine is Ukraine and Russia won't, in general, they just don't think that Ukraine is a separate country, which is, I mean, I don't know why they think like that, but a lot of them, they do. And we wouldn't believe that would happen, that like full war would happen. And then when it did happen, indeed, some people were really devastated and scared, of course. But right now, it's the more I talk to them, the more they just calm, and they realize that they have to deal with it. And they realize that they're really thankful. They really thank you for the international community for all the help. And they understand that help is not enough, because Ukraine, like, if everybody already knows like what's the size of Ukraine, which is like pretty big country. It's bigger than France, but not comparing to Russia. If you compare Ukrainian population, about 40 million versus Russia, like about 150 or like little less, triple basically. And so they don't have a chance if that's going on for a long time. Just because it's much smaller. And so Ukraine really need help, real help, just protecting themselves.
Your comment that they're getting on and they're doing what they can. It just brings to mind during World War II, we all see the signs, and now people wear the shirts that keep calm and carry on that the British people wore during the Blitz. It's kind of reminiscent of the struggle and the courage of the Ukrainian people. But what actually got us here? I mean, we hear that there's been ongoing back and forth between the Russians and the Ukrainian people. Can you take us back and maybe to from when you were a boy? You know, when you were growing up, I believe, if I'm doing the math correctly in my head, it was still Ukraine was still an SSR at that time. How are the relationships between? Because I know there's Russian speakers in Ukraine as well as Ukrainian speakers. Did people get along? Was there friction then? And how did it develop over time?
Yeah, I was born in 1970, so that was still very much Soviet Union, and Leonid Brezhnev was as the head of USSR at that time. And you lived at that time, and at that time, it was, people really believed, most of the people, they had to believe that Soviet is great and that's the way it's supposed to be, and Ukraine is part of big country. And it was difficult. It was difficult because I felt as a kid that I was not spoken everything that I need to know. It was dangerous. I mean, to the extent that how dangerous it is. You go to school, for example, and they will ask you, like, if it's any national Ukrainian holidays, what kind of food did you have, for example? And that, like, you have to be careful, because if you start, they would just lure kids for information. So parents had to be careful how to present that to kids so they don't burn, basically, so they don't say something that would be, that can lead them to trouble. My father, I learned that later, my father had quite a bit of trouble from KGB because he is a journalist and he is a writer. And so a lot of Ukrainian poetry was forbidden. And but because he was interested in that, he had trouble with that. And somebody told KGB about him that he has some literature, and KGB was calling him up, and it was like, I learned that later. They didn't want to tell us, of course, as we were kids. Okay, then like when we grew up, and it became a little bit looser later on, and then finally collapsed completely in 90s. Then that, like, really a lot of truth started to come up, and that was just like mind-blowing what's going on. There so many movies, so much in papers and like written, and it just you start learning about those things, and it was quite revelation, but really crazy experience. Then later on, so Ukraine got independence in 90s, and it's just became different country. It's like freedom of speech and main desire to be a European country. And unfortunately, what's happened in Russia is Russia sort of like remained what was left from Soviet Union. And Putin being president there since 2000, I mean, he was from 2000 to 2008 a president, and Medvedev was one term a president for 4 years, and then he came back. And well, what's really happening, and that's well known, at least for Ukrainians, that they were trying at first to like make it look like it's a democratic society. And then when Medvedev came, it was like to make it look like he was basically puppet of Putin, and everybody knows that. So basically that was like switched to make it look like this is democratic. But I think it didn't, even that didn't quite work, because Medvedev started to do some progressive things, and Putin wasn't too happy with it. He just decided, I forget about it, I'm just gonna do it my way. And that's, I think, what's happening. I mean, being dictator for over 22 years, you start feeling that you're invincible, that like, and he is former KGB agent, as you know, as many know. And I think his idea is like, it just has to become former Soviet Union to recreate the former glory of that. And as far as he is concerned, I think it's ends somewhere close to Berlin Wall. I hope it won't end there, but that's the feeling that I get. And Ukraine is really there are many Ukrainians that speak Russian, and that's never been an issue in Ukraine, because I studied in Odessa, and Odessa is well known as a Russian speaking community, and I spoke 5 years Russian, never had any issues with that, or heard anybody even bringing that up, that this is a problem. If anything, if you would speak Ukrainian in Odessa, that would look a little weird. And for me, it never bothered me. I speak fluent Ukrainian and Russian. It never bothered me go back and forward between languages. So it's easier for you to speak Russian. Fine, I'll speak Russian with you. Or if I know that person is Ukrainian, we speak Ukrainian. That was never an issue. And what I think Moscow underestimated and did not realize that Russian-speaking Ukrainians, they don't really seek to be in Russia. They don't feel like being in Russia. It's one thing to speak Russian language, another thing to think like in former Soviet.
Do you get the sense that Putin, in his mind, he thought that, well, the Russians will go in, and then the Russian-speaking Ukrainians will come and rally with us, and Ukraine will collapse? Do you think that might have come into play with?
Absolutely. That was actually that was part of the plan. That was actually they were it's supposed to be. They prepared that. They just sometimes corruption works actually well because in that country I think they spent quite a bit of money to actually do this, but I think it didn't quite happen, because very often back in Soviet, the things were done kind of formally. So they give some money toward it and they sort of do it, but it doesn't have really effect. And so maybe it just didn't have necessary effect for what I can see and what I can hear from Ukrainian news. Because people they could not be spoken clearly. Okay, Russia will invade, and you make sure you're happy about it. But they were talking, okay, do you support Russians? And they will, nothing wrong. But when Russia actually indeed came and started to shoot Russian-speaking communities, they're not gonna say, okay, great, finally somebody came to save us, because don't need to be saved. I mean, Ukraine. In no part of Ukraine, anybody feels that they need to be saved from being Ukrainian.
Well, it goes back to the basic question. We see with Putin, we see early on with Chechnya, and then with Georgia, and with the earlier invasion into Crimea. What is his goal? What do the people of Ukraine, both there and here, what do they view as Putin's ultimate goal? What is he trying to accomplish here?
I think just basic dictator thing, any greater power country had some there were Turks that wanted to invade. They were it's the same thing. It's just a Soviet version of that. And I think he's at least trying to recreate former Soviet Union. That's I think his desire. I don't see any other reasons. Why would, if at least they maybe say that Ukrainians and Russians are closer, so Ukrainian is not really a separate nation, which is totally not true, Ukraine it's different nations than Russia, completely. But if you have at least that as an excuse, what your excuse to go to Chechnya, have completely different, it's completely different people. Different language, different culture, different beliefs, have nothing to do with Russia. But I mean, that's happened even before Soviet. Russians had their business in Caucasus for a long time before, even when Tsar was there. So
it's something that goes back. I recall Ukraine had the first elections, 15, 20 years ago,
yes.
Democratic elected, and then the candidate, the president was poisoned. Could you share what was behind that? Was that a kind of a genesis to this, or just another step toward Putin's goal to bring Ukraine into the fold?
Yes, well, there was election, yes, and his name Viktor Yushchenko. He is pro-Ukrainian, and there's another person that is pro-Russian, which is Yanukovych. And at that time, the elections were breached, and they were like miscalculated on purpose, and that was proven. And so there was revolution, and people selected Yushchenko. And Yushchenko, right when it was happening, supposedly was poisoned because he had some interference with Russians, and it believes that he was poisoned. And it was quite, by looking at his face, you can see there was some kind of radioactive, what they say. But I did not explore that too much, so I cannot say for sure what's happened there. But definitely it started there. There was, Yushchenko became president. He was a president for 4 years. Later on, Yanukovych became president anyway, this pro-Russian, and that's why second revolution happened. And how it's happened again, because Yanukovych was sort of like pro-Russian at the same time, because Ukraine has Duma, they have people in parliament, they were steps taken toward being in the European Union. And I think under that pressure, Yanukovych had to sort of go toward closer to European Union. And then he suddenly said that, no, it's not going to happen, made ultimate decision. But that does not run in Ukraine very well. And people started to do demonstrations again. And and that's where Moscow started to, that's why they invaded Crimea and all that.
When we were talking the other day, we were talking a little bit about Putin and his motivation, and the question in the rest of the world of what to do and what not to do because of a fear of provoking Putin. And you made a comment that that really stuck with me, and I just want you to comment on it. You said it doesn't matter if you provoke him or not. He has in his mind what he's going to do, and it doesn't matter if you provoke him or not. Is that something that's firmly held and believed in your circles? And maybe you can just expand on that a little bit, just help us into that mindset.
Yeah, I do think so. Like, if you look at what's happening right now, Ukraine did not do any particular provocation that they started, and Russia just, like I said, including president, nobody really believes that they will start full war in Ukraine. Yes, they were trying to deal with this Lugansk and regions there on the borders with Russia, and tried to make it look like people are unhappy there, and that's why they want to become independent from Ukraine. And now they're trying to do the same thing. It's just not gonna run anymore. They go to Kherson, they try to make sort of referendums there and make it look like it's a people's will. It's just not going to happen because people are with flags and on demonstration daily and going without arms against fully armed Russian soldiers, and they just they don't afraid. Okay, you want to kill us all? I guess that's the only way you can do it, but they're not going to go, they're not going to even participate in this referendum. And it's difficult for them even to create that referendum where they will falsely say like that, okay, you see, they voted, because they know how to do it. They will make it look like majority wants to be with Russia, which is totally not true. And like provoking Putin, okay, what takes to provoke Putin? Like, he can say that he's been provoked because he have sanctions and like the military equipment is sent to Ukraine. I would think in his mind that's enough provocation to do whatever he wants, and he doesn't need any more provocation. I think when he is like just bully. So if you, for bully, do you need to provoke bully to start bullying? He just wants to bully. He will do it no matter you provoke it. They will usually, like if you see with kids like bullies, they will actually try to sort of provoke them to act. And usually they will go like, oh no, we don't mean any harm, and they do it anyway. It doesn't matter. So as far as I am concerned, or Ukrainians concerned, like it doesn't take much to provoke him. He have enough. In his mind, he have enough evidence that the whole world against him anyway. And because people, I understand the scare of nobody wants World War III, nobody, including Ukrainian. But if you look at this again, okay, he have nuclear weapon. Ukraine has nuclear power plants, and there are Russians there right now in Chernobyl and in Zaporizhia. Both the workers that work there, they work under constant stress. They work there and under basically gunpoints. And what does it take to just make explosions there? What's the difference if it's a nuclear weapon, a nuclear explosion on the plant? It's just as good. I'm sorry, as bad.
Yeah, it's just as bad. Sure, sure. Well,
Yeah.
it's good to know that the world community is coming together and providing relief and support wherever possible. Are there any efforts locally that in our community that we can do in Stockton as part of the Pacific community to be of assistance?
I think.
Is there an event coming up? Is there?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I mean, everybody I know is like, I get in so many calls and so many support from European, like students brought me some posters and I am reading all of them, and it's very dear to me. And like, I'm reading it to my friends and telling them it's a big support for them psychologically, of course, and like playing music. We are arranging the concert in fundraiser concert at Conservatory on April 2nd at 7:30, and the proceeds from that concert will go toward humanitarian needs of Ukraine. And I think at this point, what is very important is just
to be clear, there on April 2nd, that's a Saturday. It's coming up at the Faye Spanos Conservatory of Music. There's going to be a benefit concert for the people of Ukraine, and for those participating on this call, I think Janice just put a link to the event, and we will also be putting that out. But that's something we want to spread the word. Could you tell us about what's going to transpire, who's going to be involved, from where the performers are coming, and if someone we know here may be performing?
Yes, it's going to be concert is going to consist of conservatory faculty, including myself, and students interested to participate. I had quite vast response from the students that want to participate in this concert. I also invite in some Ukrainian folk musicians that play in bandura, Ukrainian folk instruments that like you don't see it usually. It's very interesting, very unique sound. And Ukrainian singers who sing Ukrainian folk songs. I think it's going to be a great event. Mainly it will consist of Ukrainian repertoire and anti-war repertoire.
Well, it sounds like a fantastic evening, and we're looking forward to being part of that. Do people need to buy tickets in advance, or just show up at the door? How's that gonna work?
I think it's gonna just show up at the door, because like it's like last moment doing things like that, organizing full concert is not that easy. Usually it's planned much longer term, but it just need is very great. So I just decided to do that, and Dean of Conservatory and faculty were very supportive. So I'm really thankful for that. So we're going to put together some great event, I hope.
Well, that's going to be great. I guess we have some, and thank for the people participating. It looks like we have a few questions. Chris, if you can help us out with that, if there are some questions, if you could pass those along, and we can address that.
Yes, all right. So thank you all for typing your questions. With the time for questions, if you want to use the reaction button and use the raise hand, then we can let you ask live. That way you can participate as well. We do have one in the chat that I want to get to, and then we'll get to Jorge. So the one that is in the chat, to what extent are relief supplies, food, water, etc., getting to besieged Ukrainian cities?
Yeah, it's a great question. The western part of Ukraine is still, you can say, relatively safe, and food and supplies are getting there. And but like Mariupol is the biggest trouble right now, because it's under Russian terrorists, and so they just can. And there were like numerous attempts made to make a green corridor, what they call, to be able to escape from there, but like it just did not succeed. So to some regions, but that's not like, you cannot say that this is the most of Ukraine. For Mariupol particularly, and some other regions, it's impossible to get them anything. And like Ukrainians are really trying. And it's quite sarcastic, I find, that Russian offering their corridors to Russia from this region. I don't know how they even think that should work, because like, as far as I understand, this like would be the same as like capturing prisoners of war, like civilians, prisoners of war, sending them to Russia. But so that does not work either. So it's difficult.
Right, thank you so much. Next up, Jorge Birrera, class of '01.
Thanks, Chris. Well, first off, thank you, Professor Veligan, for taking time out to do this. This is very, very enlightening, especially to have you tell your story. Great story. Thank you so much. I have, first off, a comment, a little bit of a story, and then a question. I spent 22 years in the U.S. military. In fact, I was in the military while I was in school, and I was as a reservist while I was at Pacific. Fast forward to 2008, I was actually, I had to put on my government liaison hat on behalf of the State Department. I was sent to Turkmenistan, and former Soviet republic. And that was part of, we were forging a relationship with, Iran's northern neighbor. I was 22 miles from the Iranian border. And the entire time I was there, FSB was following us in 50 meters behind us, and they weren't they weren't hiding from us. They were following us. And
FSB is now what the KGB is.
What the KGB used to be, right? FSB is what and they weren't hiding. They were 50 meters behind us everywhere we went, and it kind of shows the level of control that Russia, and this shows kind of the Putinism that and this was during President Medvedev's tenure at the time, and while while I was there, our team actually got kicked out of our hotel because President Medvedev was coming and he wanted to stay at the hotel where we were. And so he did not want Americans staying in the hotel where he was. So we got kicked out of our hotel and got sent to a different hotel because he didn't want, Americans staying. So this kind of shows the level of control that the Russians want on these former Soviet republics. And that was during Medvedev, which, Professor Veligan was talking about, that even during sort of that progressive era during President Medvedev had, Putin still had that control over these former republics. One little tidbit about California. I did some work with the California National Guard, and the California National Guard, Ukraine is actually the sister state of the California National Guard, and so the California National Guard trained and they trained us in the California National Guard. So we did a pretty close partnership. So what I'm hoping right now is that our tactics and strategy that the U.S. Army and the U.S. Air Force, California Air National Guard, California National Guard, we're hoping that is what is helping to resist the Russian forces right now. Just some context and some stuff that some of my experience has had. But my question, Professor Veligan, is to what extent, and I know you touched a little bit on this, are the people of Ukraine picking up arms? I know you said that some people are picking up arms and defending themselves, but how organized is it? Is it happening just in the key cities, or is it happening throughout the country? And is it organized? Is it Is it like and how is the training happening, or is it sort of just people like in 13 colonies like in our history in our country, where people were just have weapons in their house and sort of just defending their homes like in our country's history.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, the lines to enlist to territorial army are huge, just huge. I mean, it's sometimes, from what I heard, it's impossible. If you go, stay in line, you might need to come back next day. So it's I don't know if you know that, but in Ukraine, the law is that every male goes to army for 2 years, basically. And usually people not very enthusiastic about it, and they feel basically that they waste time these 2 years, because it's that age, if you don't build military career, you don't really want to do that, because you would rather do what go study. And there are some ways, there are some ways to, if you go to get your education, high education, you have you can take two years off and then come later. So
Like
that's not, yeah. But right now it's opposite. People actually wants to go there, and it's everywhere. Lines to enlist into this territorial defense are everywhere. Ukraine is not lawful to carry firearms in Ukraine. So if people would just want to protect their country with their own weapons, they can, because they don't have weapons. And that's where one actually, believes that's another thing, what would happen if in Ukraine it would be lawful to have weapons. Maybe that would change too, because I don't know. I'm not big on that. I don't know how to speak on that subject, but comes to mind when things like that happen. But yeah, they supplying Ukrainians people with weapons right now. They are very careful about it. They do a good, they check in their backgrounds. They check in if they have some training. Unfortunately, when situation like this, they don't have that much time to to get real training. I mean, it does not happen in a couple of days, but they do trainings. And again, what I'm saying is from my friends. So I don't want to go into details. I don't want to name the names, but family and relatives. I know many that went to this territorial defense. They get in their training, and they are getting ready to protect their country. So far, army is actually, Ukrainian army is doing absolutely amazing. It's just I myself did not believe that it's possible like that, but they are I'm really proud. It's unbelievable how they put in defense of Ukraine, how they defend their country. But yes, people really want to help in any way they can, in any way, including women's. I mean, there's women that they're young, just started to study as a medic, taking arms and going to field and saving soldiers and shooting when necessary, and doing all what it takes to just save the country. It breaks my heart to look at those,
Yeah. Thank you, Jorge. We appreciate your insight and your own personal history. That's very, very enlightening. Chris, do we have any other questions? Any additional?
Yeah. So we have some good chat going on in the chat area. Bringing it back to the April 2nd concert. I know there was a couple of questions about possibly offering it virtually. I know that is kind of a difficulty making sure that it sounds correctly, especially through Zoom. And we would definitely encourage everyone to attend in person, especially for everyone that's putting that on and taking the time to do that. So if you're able to attend and in the area, please do attend. We will look to see virtually what that is possible, anything that's possible for that. And then to get to the questions of that, will people be able to donate online? And then what organizations will donations be directed to?
Okay, so one of the organization I already shared right before this meeting, so it's probably available right now. And there will be more. I'll make sure that I'll bring to enough centers where people can donate money, and we check in them. We do it like really in a personal relationship. If you know the person, we just do it like really. So just to make sure that it has utmost impact on this, that all money go to the needs and they not wasted, because the needs is great, and we want to make sure that every dollar that person wants to donate go exactly where it's supposed to go. So I'll make sure to have by the concert, I will definitely have more than one.
And please, Chris, we'll make sure when we have that information, we'll get it out to all the participants on this call, and obviously all the participants, if you can or can't come, but people who would be interested, please feel free to share that information. This is an inclusive, welcoming event. Were there other questions, Chris? Or?
Yeah, so a couple more direct quotes. Actually, since we have a live question, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Catherine, and then the one in the chat we'll get to next. So,
Catherine, please.
Hello, thank you so much for putting this together. I hope that we will take this information and share it with our personal communities, for those of us who have participated in this wonderful Zoom. Thank you so much for bringing this together. Very much appreciate it. And all of the shares. The question that I have relates to the concert. I'm not concerned about the quality of the concert. I'm sure that the quality would be amazing in person, and that the skill of the musicians is of the utmost quality, and that the sound system is going to be phenomenal in person. I'm in Los Angeles, and I'm not going to be up there. I'm not going to be up there. And I suspect that a good number of the alumni are not living in Stockton or even in the Bay Area, within reach. I mean, all of the students that I was at Raymond Callison College, and I'm a graduate of '81. We all came from other parts of the world, not just the state of California. But so I'm thinking that it would be helpful if it could be made available. And I understand that there could be some copyright issues, but I would think that I would hope that the people who would attend, for the purpose of supporting a fundraiser where Professor Veligan, you were saying that these charities will be hand selected. I've done a lot of general relief around the world in different places, and making sure that the most amount of money goes directly into the people who are in need of it is really important. But I'm assuming that will all be vetted, and that the people who participate are there with goodwill toward the human, the world citizenship, as opposed to thinking about downloading and hijacking music. But for me, it's not about the quality of the music. I'm sure the quality is there, but it's joining. It's kind of like a universal prayer. It's like everyone coming together and holding the intention. And I think about one of the most unifying elements that we can share. It's not our words, it's music. People use words differently, even amongst one another, using the same language, let alone, but music transcends, it enters us and gives us experience. So to be able to share in kind of this universal way, I would just hope that maybe we would look past some of the other considerations that you would generally have about copyright issues and locally. But I mean, the alumni is large. It's a large community, but those living in the within hand's reach is probably pretty limited.
Yeah, appreciate it, Catherine. Yeah, and that is something that this is all coming together very fast, and our good friends are looking at the appropriate way to do that. And if we can make that happen online, that is certainly a great way to do that. Thank you. Thank you for your interest in that. Chris?
Yeah, all right. The question in the chat was if Professor Igor was planning to go back in the future, back to Ukraine, what would you expect to see there, and what are your hopes if you are planning to go back when you arrive?
Yes, thank you for this question. Actually, I have two sons. They both grown up. One is 28, one is 23. And like my youngest son, he was born here in the United States. But he went all this, like after a week or so, he is very concerned. He's following it closely. And he says that, that's the first thing I'm going to do when all this over. I'm going to go back to Ukraine and see how I can help to rebuild the country, see what I can do to help. And that's, I think, many people here, they feel like that. I've been in Ukraine many times since we left. We going back, like at least, I believe 6 or 7 times we've been in Ukraine after we left. Like I said, we had relatives there and we have many good friends, and it's always great to go and visit and, and communicate. And we definitely plan to go there. We really want to go there and to do what we can in any way, like how to rebuild the country, just see how we can be helpful, like rebuild culture if necessary, or rebuild just with, with some monetary help or whatever we can do. We want to help as much as we can.
I think that's a very, very noble and honorable thing to do. We all wish the people of Ukraine all the best in their struggles. And they're not alone. If you can convey that, I mean, I'm sure that message is getting them. So that is right now, not shifting gears, but it seems like an appropriate time to do this. And I would like you to introduce a video performance you have, and I guess if you provide the background, and I guess Chris has set it up to play it. So you know where we're going.
Yes. So the piece that we played recently, last Sunday, actually, we played twice in my church where I am attending in Sacramento, and then we went to San Francisco, where I was in Herb's Theater. There was organized event for Ukrainian fundraiser, and we were happy to participate. There are many things that happening right now. And so the piece that we play is Melody by Skorek, and I am playing with my wife, Mira Veligan. And the piece was written by Skorek. I knew the composer personally. I actually went there in 2012. We recorded his sonata. That's another piece. We recorded 3 movements of his sonata among other works. I'll also make this CD available to donate all the proceeds from it to Ukraine. And we made a recording of his sonata. So we played for him, and a little bit of his story. His brother was fighting for independence of Ukraine. And for that, during Soviet, he and his parents were sent to Siberia, where he spent over 10 years, I believe 15 or so. And then he came back to Lviv, got his degree as a composer, and he is a fabulous musician. He passed away 2 years ago, and a really great jazz improviser, and his music has some jazz elements in it. This melody that we play, it was written for one of the Ukrainian movies. So it's a movie music, but it's becoming almost like a second hymn of Ukraine nowadays. It's becoming very famous nowadays.
Go ahead and be seated. We have a special opportunity today to focus our attention on Ukraine. I know I feel this heavy in my heart as we walk through this week, leading into today, that this is a world concern and our concern, and we have many people in our church from Ukraine and other nations of Eastern Europe that surround their large Slavic community, which we love in our city. And I know there's a great burden that is there. And Igor is from Ukraine. And thank you for playing with us today. Yeah. You've been such an amazing part of our family here for years, and expert concert violinist. Your heart is heavy today too. You have relatives that are there, and you mentioned to me the person who wrote this song is from Ukraine.
Yes, we are going to play the piece by Miroslav Skorik. The name of it is Melody. And he's from Western Ukraine, from Lviv, and that's actually the town where I was born. And Miroslav Skorik from 1937, he passed a couple years ago, and part of his life he spent in Siberia because his brother was fighting for freedom in Ukraine, and he and his whole family were sent to Siberia for that. So I'd like to play this piece for it.
That has a lot of meaning, and as Igor plays, pray even as he's playing for the people of Ukraine, for evil to be turned back. We'll pray corporately at the conclusion of this song, but pray along with it as we believe God for intervention in the moments that we're in. So let's just join our hearts together in contemplative prayer while this is played. Thank you so much.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful, Igor. And,
Thank you.
My best, and thank your wife too. That performance, you and her are remarkable talents, and a credit to not only Ukrainian people, to the world. And we're so honored to have you as part of the Pacific community.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Chris, do we have?
All right, so it looks like we are at our 1 o'clock time. We want to be respectful of everyone and say thank you for joining us. We will be following up this with an email for information for the concert. I know there's a lot of questions about that on April 2nd. We have a couple other questions in here about follow-up links and that type of thing. So we will put all that in the email that you all registered with. So thank you so much from the Pacific Alumni Association for joining us today. Thank you so much, Professor Igor, for talking with us today. Thank you so much, Greg, for hosting and asking these questions and leading a wonderful discussion. So thank you so much, everyone. We hope that we see you in the future, and thank you, thank you.
And I want to thank everybody for organizing this event. It's like, I really believe it's important for Ukraine, and I really feel honored to talk on behalf of my people. So thank you.
Thank you.